The Audi A1 shows its trendy lifestyle side in this Citycarver guise. This variant is SUV inspired, but of course it's not any sort of SUV. It's not even really any sort of crossover either, though you do get an extra 4 centimetres of ride height and, more importantly, a whole stack of extra pavement presence. So, the Citycarver. Silly name. Sensible car? No, not really. But then life would be pretty dull if purchase decisions were all based on sensibility. The A1 Citycarver is a model aimed at people who like the idea of a small SUV but want to stay with the dinky dimensions of a supermini. It's a concept that's been floated on and off quite frequently over the years, back in the dim and distant with cars like the Volkswagen Polo Dune and the Citroen C3 XTR, and more recently with the Ford Fiesta Active, but never with a premium model in this segment, like the Audi A1. So what difference will a bit of body cladding and a slightly higher ride height make here? Let's find out. You might expect that the addition of 40 kilograms of weight and a higher ride height might have a negative effect on the tarmac performance of this car. Happily though, that's not the case. Actually, the opposite is true. This variant's extra suspension travel delivering a slightly more compliant ride than you get in an equivalent A1 Sport derivative. And there's certainly much softer springing than you'd find with the much more firmly suspended A1 S-Line. Most Citycarver models will be sold with the 1-litre 3-cylinder petrol unit that we're trying here, the 116 PS 30 TFSI version of it. Unlike an ordinary A1 Sportback, this pretend SUV variant doesn't bother with this engine in its lesser 95 PS 25 TFSI guise. The performance stats are exactly the same as they would be for any other A1 30 TFSI derivative. Rest to 62 miles an hour in 9.5 seconds, or 9.4 seconds if you go for the alternative S-Tronic 7-speed dual-clutch automatic that we're trying here. There's also a top speed of 126 miles an hour either way. Now, it's a punchy, wheeling little engine with decent low-down pulling power for urban work and enough top-end refinement to make longer highway trips comfortable. If highway journeys are more the norm for you, then you might want to find the extra for the alternative 4-cylinder 1.5-litre 35 TFSI engine, which puts out 150 PS. In S-Tronic form, this improves the performance stats to 7.7 seconds and 137 miles an hour. On the twisty stuff, there's a fraction more body roll than you get in a conventional A1, but to really notice that, you'd have to be pushing through the turns a lot harder than a typical owner ever would. Like an ordinary A1, you get plenty of front-end traction and precise direct steering. As usual, there's the Audi Drive Select drive setting system, which offers 4 modes: auto, dynamic, efficiency and individual. These alter steering feel, throttle response and, on an S-Tronic variant, gear shift timings too. If you like the idea of an A1 Sportback with a little extra attitude, you'll like what Audi has tried to do here. This variant's large octagonal single-frame front grille references the brand's various Q-Series SUV models and surrounds a sculpted honeycomb insert painted in matte black. These 2 smart slots above the grille add a bit of extra purpose, and there's this lower silvered finish for the splitter to add a whiff of SUV-ness. In profile, this model's more muscular look has been achieved primarily through redesigned sills in a contrasting colour, underbody protection in a stainless steel finish and raised suspension, giving around 4 centimetres of additional ground clearance. You also get wheel arch extensions which shroud these bigger 17-inch rims. A contrast coloured roof in either black or grey is optional. At the rear, a restyled bumper echoes the robust look of the front end. Plus, it incorporates these accented black corner cutouts and a lower silvered section. In addition, there's a special Citycarver roof spoiler and LED tail lamps with dynamic scrolling indicators. Inside, there's rather less differentiation over a normal A1 Sportback, but it all feels very high-end for a supermini. You get silver grey accents for the air vents, the door handle recesses and the centre console. There's aluminium trim for the control switches and the 10.25-inch virtual cockpit digital instrument cluster, which, as with any other A1, marks this car out from non-premium brand small hatches. The standard MMI centre dash display is 8.8 inches in size, but many owners will want to upgrade to the larger 10.1-inch MMI navigation monitor we have here. In the rear seat, you'll find enough space for a couple of 6-footers to sit behind comparably sized adults in the front. The knees will probably be brushing the seat backs, and there's reasonable headroom by supermini standards. You get a fairly high transmission tunnel though, and there are not even any seat back pockets, which seems a bit mean, but you get decently sized door pockets. Out back, there's the usual 335-litre boot. It's a well-shaped space too, efficiently square and unimpeded by wheel arch intrusion. 4 body-coloured tie-down hooks feature, as do a couple of bag hooks, plus you get this little compartment in the left-hand corner for smaller items. With the rear seats folded down, this space increases to 1,090 litres. There's no real room under the boot floor. If you have this space-saver spare wheel fitted, it'll impede the functionality of the adjustable height boot floor. Pricing for this A1 Citycarver starts at around £22,000. That's for the 30 TFSI variant with a manual gearbox. That's a car with a 1-litre 116 PS turbo petrol 3-cylinder engine. If you want Audi's S-tronic dual-clutch automatic transmission, you'll need to find around £1,500 more. The alternative 1.5-litre 4-cylinder petrol-powered 35 TFSI version of this car costs around £1,000 more with either gearbox. In terms of the premium that the Citycarver spec demands over more ordinary A1 trim levels, well, for one of these, you'll be paying around £800 more than you would for an equivalent mid-range A1 Sportback Sport model, and around £200 less than you'd have to find for an equivalent A1 Sportback S-Line variant. The standard Citycarver equipment spec obviously includes the special body kit we described in the design and build section of this film, and the big 17-inch 5-spoke Y-design alloy wheels. In addition to that, you get full LED headlights plus LED rear lamps with dynamic scrolling indicators. Also included are power-folding mirrors, an anti-theft alarm, rear parking sensors and a strong standard of camera-driven safety equipment, including lane departure warning and the Audi Presense front autonomous braking system with pedestrian and cyclist recognition. Inside, there's front sport seats in special Novum cloth, an LED interior lighting pack, an auto-dimming rearview mirror and air conditioning. Infotainment's taken care of by an 8.8-inch MMI centre dash screen, your access point to the 6-speaker DAB audio system, Bluetooth and the Audi smartphone interface with its Apple CarPlay and Android Auto handset connectivity. Go for the optional technology pack and you can upgrade this monitor to 10.1 inches in size. Plus, as with all A1s, you can specify a 10.25-inch digital instrument cluster display screen. An optional comfort and sound pack gets you extra parking assistance, front seat heating and the Bang & Olufsen 3D sound system with 560 watts of music power. You'd expect the small weight increase of this variant and its slightly higher ride height to have a marginally negative effect on fuel and CO2 readings. And sure enough, it does. There's nothing to get too despondent about though. The manual 1-litre 30 TFSI petrol Citycarver model manages 46.3 miles to the gallon on the WLTP combined cycle and 139 grams per kilometre of WLTP rated CO2. For the S-Tronic Auto, the figures are 44.1 miles to the gallon and 146 grams per kilometre. To give you some comparison, a standard A1 Sportback 30 TFSI Sport variant with a manual gearbox returns 48.7 miles to the gallon and 131 grams per kilometre. The alternative 35 TFSI 4-cylinder 150 PS variant is nearly as clean and frugal thanks to its clever cylinder-on-demand technology, which disables 2 of the engine cylinders at low to mid-throttle loads. Mated with a manual box, this power plant manages a WLTP combined cycle return of 44.8 miles to the gallon and a WLTP rated CO2 reading of 142 grams per kilometre, or 44.1 miles to the gallon and 145 grams per kilometre in S-Tronic guise. For both derivatives, residuals are expected to be as strong, if not a little better, than an ordinary A1 Sportback. As for maintenance, well, servicing your A1 should be no more taxing than is the case with one of the company's larger cars. As usual with Audi models, there's a choice of either a fixed or a flexible servicing regime. The choice between the two depending on the extent of your likely annual mileage. So, is there really a place in the A1 Sportback range for a variant jazzed up with body cladding, lifestyle marketing and a bit of extra ride height? Probably yes. Before this test, we might have doubted this, but rather against the odds, the A1 Citycarver has, to some extent, converted us to the concept. Nobody buys a small crossover to go off-roading, but people do like the confidence that kind of car can give if, say, you're dropping off the main road onto a gravelly lay-by, or you're negotiating a bumpy track up to a forest car park. Buying an SUV just to deal with that kind of thing might seem a bit extreme when there's a simpler solution like this Citycarver on offer. Thanks to its extra ride height, it gives you much the same kind of capability without the usual SUV running costs, deterioration and handling downsides. Yes, you'll pay a bit of a premium to get these benefits, but it's not too extreme, and it does give you a small car with a bit more pavement presence and a slightly nicer quality of ride, which is something you can console yourself with when you realise that to own one of these, you've ended up paying the kind of money that would otherwise have bought you a much larger car. But that wouldn't have the jewel-like essence of Audi-ness that you get with this model. If you can't resist that and want an A1 with a little extra attitude, the Citycarver will be right up your street.